guys, welcome to episode 3 of Wellness Chat Wednesday. I am so excited to be here and to share with you what the heck is clean eating, because I'm sure you've heard about it before, so let's get started right now. So, what is clean eating? Well, it's very, very simple, and it's also very complicated at the same time. But today I'm going to break it down a little bit for you and kind of give you some information about what clean eating is, what it means, and some really easy swaps you can start to make in your diet and really clean up your diet like right away. So basically, eating clean is just eating real, whole, raw, unprocessed foods as much as you can. Now, it's not totally unavoidable, obviously, but as much as you can, really focusing on using quality ingredients and real foods that don't come in a box, don't come in a can, preparing all your own meals. It's going to make a tremendous difference in your life, not just physically, but also just health-wise. You have to think of food as like your fuel. So if you go to the gas station and your car is supposed to take the 93 gas and you're only putting in 87, well, obviously your car is not going to be performing at its optimal level. So it's the same thing with your body. If you're not feeding it the things that it needs, you're not going to be performing at an optimum level. So really, portion control kind of goes along with this, what I talked about last week, because when you are doing portion control, you are emphasizing certain food groups like veggies and fruits and raw grains and things like that, which in turn are essentially clean eating. So when you are watching what you're eating and you're really focusing on what you're putting into your body, you're kind of doing both of those things at the same time. But that's not to be said that too much of a good thing is not still a bad thing, right? So you can still overeat on healthy foods and it can still be detrimental for you. So what is processed foods? You heard me say that clean eating is really consisting of eating unprocessed foods. Well, processed foods are anything that have additives in them, so extra salt, extra sugar, extra fats, preservatives to keep them from going bad. Most of the things that you will find in a box or in a can usually that are already been prepared for you with minimal, you need minimum skill to finish the cooking of them. They've probably been ultra processed. And along with that, also, if you're reading a nutrition label and you find something that you can't pronounce, that is a really big red flag that that food has been processed in some way. Preservatives are added to make the shelf lives higher, and extra things are added in there, and they put lots of chemicals and things and stuff. So you've really got to pay attention to what it is that's actually in the ingredients list of what you're buying. And then also, if something's been altered in a way that changes the consistency or the taste a little bit or something like that, just so it's a little bit more appealing to people. So a good example of this would be like a veggie shake or like a veggie drink, a vegetable drink that is supposed to be really good for you that most people would think would taste really bad, but somehow they've made it taste really good. That's strange, right? I mean, like if you're drinking a veggie drink and it's super sweet, obviously you're going to know that there's been added sugar into it. So if they're changing it in any way to kind of like trick you into thinking it's a little bit healthier, that counts as being processed as well. And actually, you have to be really careful because some labels can be really misleading. You see on a lot of things less sodium or no trans fat, or it's been enriched or enhanced with vitamins and minerals and things like that. Things that to you are like, oh, okay, that's good. It's less sodium. That means less salt. That must be good for me. Or the no trans fat. Well, that obviously has to be good for me, or else why would they be putting it on the label? And something is enhanced with vitamins, that must mean it's better, right? Well, that's not always the case. A lot of times there are alternatives for those things that they have also added in, so it still counts as an additive. Artificial sweeteners and things like that are really, really unhealthy for you. If you are a diet pop, diet anything drinker, I would highly recommend that you stop and look into different alternative sweeteners, because artificial sweetener is just very, very bad for you. I am lucky that I actually have an allergy to artificial sweeteners, so I can't drink diet stuff. I can't really ingest anything with artificial sweeteners, or it makes me sick. So I don't have to worry about whether I want to drink diet pops or anything like that, because I can't anyways. But be careful of that. Things that are labeled in a way that might lead you to believe that they are healthy, but if it's still not a whole, raw, unprocessed food, it's probably a scam. They're probably trying to trick you in some way into thinking that it is healthier for you, but it's really not. So why do we clean eat? Why is it better to cook our own meals and to prepare our own stuff and to use these better ingredients than just quick, convenient, fast food, whatever? So clean eating has a lot of health benefits, obviously, other than it can just help you lose weight because you're not ingesting as many calories, and you're ingesting the things that are better processed by your body and don't take extra energy to break down. But clean eating also helps prevent high blood pressure, diabetes, keeping your sugar low, and also cardiovascular disease. So there's like so many other health benefits to clean eating other than just losing weight. So how can you kind of start to transition this into your life? Because I know a lot of people think clean eating, they think, having to go to Whole Foods and buy more expensive food, or go to just any other, where you have to buy produce is expensive, and fish is more expensive than other meats and things like that. So how can we kind of incorporate this into our life without it being some crazy struggle? And so one of the biggest tips is, when you go grocery shopping, try to shop the perimeter of the store. So if you think about it, when you walk into Walmart, or you walk into Giant Eagle, or you walk into whatever grocery store you go to, on the outside of the store is like the deli, the meat shop, if there is one, all the meats and cheeses and yogurts and milk, and trying to think of the freezer section. So you've got your meats, you've got your freezer section. When you're going around the outside of the store, usually those are going to be the more healthy ingredients. Now think about the aisles up the middle of the store, like your cereals and your canned foods and your baked goods and your chip aisle and your pop aisle and stuff like that. That's all concentrated towards the middle. So you want to try to stick to the outside perimeter of the store, and that's where you're going to find the most healthy foods. And then, so what about when you're at home? What about whenever you're cooking and you are preparing your own meals? You can still sabotage yourself if you're not careful. So how can you cook clean? So really you want to, like I said, try to use the highest quality ingredients, use raw veggies, raw fruits, spices that are low in sodium, make your own spices. This is huge for me. I started making my own spices. Yes, spices are expensive and you do have to spend a little bit of money up front to have them, but you can pretty much make everything from spices that makes your food absolutely delicious, but there are no calories. Now, obviously, salt is, so you have to watch your salt intake. But if you're using sea salt or kosher salt or something like that, that's a little bit less sodium than regular table salt, then right there you're already making a swap. So I really, really highly suggest, if you don't already, start making your own spices. And if you're interested, drop me a comment, because I have a really awesome taco seasoning spice mix that I use, that I found online, and I make it every single time Mike begs for it. He will not let me use regular taco seasoning anymore. So yeah, if you're interested, let me know, and I will definitely hit you up with that. But anyways, so also some cooking techniques that you should use whenever you're cooking. Try to avoid deep frying, breading things. Try to avoid like really creamy sauces, and unless you're using, you know, your own ingredients and you're making your own, you know, if you're just using like jarred Alfredo sauce, things like that, obviously, canned soup, stuff like that, all of those things you are capable of making yourself. Yes, it takes a little bit of extra work, but if you do a little bit of it in advance, then it'll already be finished for you, so you can kind of just pull that's meal prepping, right? So that's a whole nother topic on its own. But then, so when you're cooking veggies, you should try to steam them instead of sauteing them in butter, or, you know, if you're just eating canned veggies, you just put a hunk of butter in there and put them on a stove and let them heat up. So if you're going to do vegetables, I would recommend like frozen vegetables and then steaming them. Also, I love to steam broccoli, just buying heads of broccoli. Asparagus is another good one. So just really changing some of your techniques, not always frying everything in oil, not always adding a bunch of butter, salt. Food can still be delicious without those things. I've had to teach Mike that a few times, but he's definitely on board with me. So yeah, definitely just dial back on the butter and the salt, and the baked goods too, which we'll get to that in a minute. So I have 4 kind of quick overall clean eating tips for you guys. I wrote them down here. So 1, more veggies. Duh. Eat more veggies. I know it sucks. I personally am not a veggie person. I used to run around and tell everyone that I was a meatitarian, and I don't say that anymore, but I used to. It literally was like my thing. I would run around and tell people I'm a meatitarian. So eat more veggies. If you have to cook them because you don't like them raw, like me, I cannot eat a salad with veggies. My salad consists of lettuce and cheese and a meat, if I'm adding a meat or a fruit or something like that. But I don't eat tomatoes or onions or peppers or like any of that stuff raw. Now, I will eat it cooked. I don't mind tomatoes, onions, peppers, all that stuff if it's cooked. So if that's what you have to do to get more veggies in, go that route, or stick with broccoli, asparagus, those kind of things. Find something you like and stick to it. But number 1 tip, eat more veggies. Okay, on to number 2, try to stick to whole grains. Now, this has been really hard for me because I am Italian and I love pasta, and I am not a fan of wheat pasta or gluten-free pasta. So, it's been, and maybe I just haven't found one yet. So if you know of a really great whole wheat or some other kind of pasta, I know you can make pasta out of like spaghetti squash and things like that, but I'm talking about like real actual pasta. If you know the name of one that's good, please let me know, because I haven't found one that I like yet. But anyway, so I've really had to dial back on my pasta intake, just because when I do have it, since I'm eating regular pasta, I want to make sure I'm not going crazy overboard. But you want to try to stick with whole grains. So quinoa is actually really good. I had never had quinoa before, and I made it not too long ago for Mike and I, and it was interesting, but I followed the recipe directions that I found online, and it actually was really, really good. So I would recommend trying quinoa if you've never had it. It is a little different at first than what you expect, but I actually enjoyed it, so I would definitely try it. Wild rice or brown rice instead of white rice, that's a good substitute to have. And then for oats, obviously oats, making oatmeal with steel cut oats, not instant oats, but like steel cut oats, those are really good whole grains for you. Okay, so tip number 3, eat less meat. And this sucks, but that doesn't mean you can't eat meat, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't eat meat. It just means eat less types of meat is what I should say. So if you're one that when you eat ground beef, if you're buying like what is it, 60, I don't know how low it goes. The lowest one I usually look at is like 80-20 meat. I usually buy the 93.7% lean meat. But if you are a person who usually buys the more fattier ground beef, try to swap out into one that has less fat. But along with that, what I mean about eat less meat is eat more of fish, shellfish like shrimp, things like that. Eat more regular fish. Eat more like turkey, chicken, not as much steak and ground meat and the really kind of fattier meats. Stick to the leaner meats. And also if you're into vegan or one of the other diets that obviously doesn't do animal products or doesn't do meat, then you can substitute ground beef with tempeh, which is supposed to be really good. So there's a suggestion for you there. And then tip number 4 is limit your sugar and salt. So obviously cutting back on sugar, cutting back on salt is going to do wonders for you. Salt makes you super dehydrated, and it also makes you bloat with water weight. So you will shrink down if you cut back on your salt. And then sugar obviously can lead to high diabetes, heart disease, things like that. So cutting back on your sugar is going to be a tremendous thing for your health, for sure. So the 4 quick tips again were more veggies, whole grains, less meat, and limit your sugar and salt. All right, so before I get done here, because I don't want to take up too much time this evening, I'm going to give you a quick list of some things that you can swap out from your pantry right now, and it will do just a quick overhaul on your diet. Now, I do have to preface this by saying I always tell people to start slow. So don't just incorporate everything all at once. Make a few switches, give it a couple weeks. Make a few more switches, or the next time you go grocery shopping, swap out some more things. And then the next time you go grocery shopping, then do some more. So I wouldn't recommend just throwing everything you have away and redoing. Unless you're really into that, then by all means do it. But I feel like if you do that, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, because it's more of that lack mindset that I can't have that, or that is bad for me, and that's not the mindset we want to do here. We want to reward ourselves with things that are going to make us feel good. So when you start incorporating a few things at a time, and you realize that your food can still taste good and your groceries aren't going to cost you $300, then you will be more likely to stick with it and keep wanting to make more shifts, and then before you know it, you've overhauled your diet. So I just want to preface all of these things I'm about to tell you, all these swaps, with don't try to overhaul yourself all at once. Just incorporate a few things here and there. So let's see here. I've got a whole bunch. So I'm just going to kind of go through my list. So my biggest swap, my very first one that I want to recommend to you, is using honey instead of sugar. So I thought I didn't like honey, and for the longest time I was totally anti-honey. I said, ew, that's absolutely disgusting. I couldn't stand anything that smelled like honey. I couldn't stand anything that tasted like honey. I was like, ew, no. And then we were at the grocery store, and Mike was like, can we get some honey? Because he really likes it. And I was like, ew, I hate honey, blah, 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 whatever. Well, we bought a bottle of oh, thanks, Megan. I just saw your comment. Baby steps are good. Yes, yes, they are. So we bought a bottle of honey, and we got one that came from a local bee farm. So it was one, not a popular brand, not the one in the little teddy bear. Like, it was in its own container. It was a little bit more expensive. I think it was like $7 or $8 for the bottle. But we brought it home, and we started using it in our tea, and I started using it to cook with and things like that. Before you know it, we're literally eating this honey out of the bottle. It is so freaking good. So now I use honey for everything instead of sugar. We only buy sugar because Mike still uses it in his coffee, but I never use it for anything else. I use honey or organic maple syrup to sweeten everything. So that's all my baked goods, all my, like if I'm making glazes for if we're cooking something dinner, you know, I've made like honey Dijon chicken and I've made things like that. Honey is where it's at, you guys. So I definitely recommend getting honey. And I have to say that I put honey in my coffee instead of sugar, and it actually wasn't bad. You just don't need very much. So don't go overboard. But yeah, honey, that's where it's at. So honey and organic maple syrup. Spend the money on the organic maple syrup. It is good and it is better for you. And it is not as sweet as Aunt Jemima's or Mrs. Buttersworth's, but it is good and it does work well on pancakes, and it also works well as a sweetener instead of sugar. So definitely spend the money on organic maple syrup. Those are my two huge first things you should swap out of your diet: honey for sugar and organic maple syrup. So that's the first two I want to put out there as like, definitely do those two. So other than that, here are some other ones. So you can use avocado or hummus for mayo. I personally have not mastered avocados yet. I don't know. I've asked a bunch of people and I've had a bunch of people tell me, but I just haven't really, I just haven't gotten into avocados yet. So I don't know, but I read online that you can use avocado or hummus for mayo. So if you know if that's true, drop me a comment and let me know if that's true. And there is a delay, so if you're seeing this and you comment and it takes me forever to respond, that's why, because there is a delay. Anyways, another big one for me, I should have put this up there with honey: sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes instead of regular potatoes. Now, some of you are probably like, oh, hell no, I'm not getting rid of my potatoes. But let me tell you what, sweet potatoes can be used for everything. They're good for a dessert. They are good for fries. They are good for baked potatoes. They are good for chips. They're good for everything. I made a dish not too long ago that was sweet potatoes, apples, and onions and chicken, and it was freaking delicious. I made another dish with sweet potato. I made sweet potato tuna patties that were absolutely delicious. And I always just thought of sweet potatoes as a dessert because I had only ever had them on Thanksgiving with a bunch of brown sugar and butter and marshmallows, which I still have on Thanksgiving. But anyways, but I had never had them any other way. And so that's all I ever thought of them was as a dessert. And now I do have to say that when we make sweet potatoes, sometimes I will still put cinnamon on it and just, you know, like if it's baked, I'll just mash it up and put cinnamon on it. And that's how I liked mine. I do that with my mashed sweet potatoes too. That's another way you can have them. You can have them mashed too. You can literally make them the same way as regular potatoes. But anyways, I will still eat them with cinnamon. But they're good with salt. Like I've made sweet potato fries and put salt and like garlic and stuff on them, and they are just as delicious as regular potato fries. So sweet potatoes are another big one. And lots of vitamin K, right? Good, very good for you. Vitamin A, right? Not vitamin K. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Okay, Megan says, sweet potatoes are my saving grace, especially in the winter when I'm craving. Yes. Yes. I love sweet potatoes. Yes. Ooh, I want one. I want to have one tonight. I don't think I have any. I need to go grocery shopping. Okay, anyways, moving on. So some things you can swap for butter. So you can start using coconut oil, and if you're not a fan of the coconut flavor, you can actually get coconut oil that has no flavor, so it's meant to be used for baking and stuff that you don't want to have that coconut flavor in. So you can cook in it, you can bake with it, you can use it in place of butter. I actually like to put coconut oil in my coffee and blend it, and I think that's like a bulletproof coffee is what that's called, and it's actually really good. It makes it frothy, even though like there's nothing that froths in it, but when you blend it up, it makes it frothy. It's very, very good. So coconut oil, or you can use ghee for butter. Now, I don't know too much about this, but from what I understand, it's sort of like a concentrated form of butter, so you don't have to use as much of it, I think is how that works. So if you know more about ghee, definitely drop it in the comments, because that's something I haven't really delved into yet, but I know a lot of people who do use it and really do love it. So that's another really good substitute for butter. I haven't totally taken butter out of my diet. I have to be honest. But I really only use it when I'm cooking, and I really try to keep it to a minimum. But I've started buying unsalted butter instead of salted butter, and I don't notice a difference at all, to be honest with you. So I would say that, and I'm not sure, I read somewhere that unsalted was better for you, so that's why I went that route. But like I said, I really don't use that much butter. I use olive oil and cooking spray and things like that. So, okay, moving on. Another swap you can use, instead of sour cream, you can use Greek yogurt. It still has that tangy flavor, same texture, but it's more protein and less calories. So Greek yogurt is a good swap. I think I have actually done Greek yogurt instead of sour cream before, and it's just as good. It's definitely good. You can make your own, and if you have Greek yogurt on hand, then you can make your own fruit on the bottom yogurt. So you can cut up apples, you can cut up strawberries, peaches, whatever, put them on the bottom, put yogurt, and then, stir it up. I actually, this week, twice for lunch, I took just plain Greek yogurt with honey and cinnamon, and I would stir that up, and then I took apple slices and dipped that in there, and it was so delicious. So that's definitely another one you can do. You eating oatmeal instead of cereal. I love cereal, and this has been a really hard one for me to give up cereal, but definitely oatmeal instead of cereal. And you can make oatmeal just as delicious if you use steel cut oats. It's better for you. You can make it just as delicious as cereal by adding things like organic maple syrup that we already talked about earlier. You can add fruit to it. I love to do apples and cinnamon in my oatmeal. Also, if you are not a big breakfast person and you don't like to get up early and make yourself breakfast or anything like that, you can make yourself overnight oats, right? In a jar with milk and fruit and honey and things like that, and it does it for you overnight. And when you wake up in the morning, you stir it up and you eat it, and you're good to go. So oatmeal is definitely a good thing to have on hand as well. This was an interesting one that I found that I had never tried before, but I'm interested to try it, although I do have a slight nut allergy. But using walnuts, or you could really just use any other kind of nuts, but it said walnuts instead of croutons on your salad. So a lot of people put walnuts in their salad anyways, pecans, peanuts, things like that. So just using those instead of croutons, because they still give you that crunch that you're looking for, but there's no carbs, and nuts are good for you, right? So that's an interesting one I would like to try. Now, if I eat too many walnuts, I have like a little bit of an allergic reaction, not anything crazy, but so I'll just have to give that one a try with just a few. But I'm definitely interested to try that one. Using dark chocolate instead of regular chocolate. Dark chocolate is full of antioxidants. It's actually really good for you. I use cocoa powder in a lot of stuff that I bake. And I was using cocoa powder when I was making my Shakeology and things like that. So dark chocolate is much better for you. So if you really crave chocolate and you have a problem with saying no to chocolate, try some dark chocolate. Now, I personally don't like dark chocolate as much to just eat, but I have to say over the years of just eating it more, it definitely doesn't bother me as much, but it's definitely an acquired taste. So that's a good swap for you as well. You can use applesauce instead of cooking oil in your baking, and it will still give you the same moisture and the same sweetness that you're looking for. So in cookies and cakes and things like that, instead of using oil, you can use applesauce. And obviously you want to go with unsweetened applesauce. You don't want to buy cinnamon, sugar applesauce and use it. You just want to get plain unsweetened. Okay, so if you're not a big water drinker, water is huge for your diet. Water is just absolutely huge. So if you're not a big water drinker, a way to make it more appealing to you and to also kind of trick your body a little bit is to do fruit infused water. They sell bottles that, separate everything so you have to drink it, or you can literally just throw it in there and make your own. But fruit infused water is really good in tricking yourself into thinking you're having juice, but you're not. You don't have all that added extra sugar and things in there. It's just plain flavored water, which is very, very good for you. And if you're a person who doesn't already like to drink water, that could definitely make it more appealing for sure. So Using corn tortillas instead of flour tortillas. Corn tortillas tend to be a little bit smaller. They have a little bit less sugar because it doesn't have all the processed flour. So if you can swap out your tacos for corn tortillas instead of flour, that's a good swap. Doing air popped popcorn instead of microwave popcorn. Obviously microwave popcorn usually has all the butter and mixings and everything else, additives in it. So if you just buy a bag of kernels and get yourself an air popper, you can air pop popcorn. Making protein bars with protein powder. If you use Shakeology, there are 1,000 million recipes on how to make cookies and cakes and mug cakes and all kinds of stuff with Shakeology, and I've made mug cakes before and they are absolutely delicious and they're so fast, and it's like you're literally eating cake, but it's good for you. So that's definitely a good swap, using protein powder instead of flour and things like that. Speaking of flour, if you use not just plain all-purpose flour, but using almond flour or coconut flour or a gluten-free flour, I can talk, then those are all really good substitutions too. We already talked about making your own seasonings instead of using pre-mixed seasoning salts and things like that. You can make your own pasta sauces, your own soups, your own stocks. You can even make your own salad dressings, and they'll be less fat. Usually it's just some vinegar and oil and whatever else you want to put in it. I made a balsamic vinaigrette that I think I got from 21 Day Fix, the 21 Day Fix book, and it was actually really, really delicious. It was like lemon balsamic vinaigrette or something like that. It was really, really good. And I didn't need a lot of it, so it lasted me for a really long time. And then as far as milk goes, obviously whole milk is not the best for you. We always have whole milk because that's what Mike likes. But whenever I make my Shakeologies, or whenever I'm just, you know, cooking with milk, I tend to use skim or something low fat. I really like coconut milk in my Shakeology. Now, I like the flavor of coconut, so I like coconut milk. Almond milk is another good one, but you want to be careful. You want to stay away from soy milk. There's a lot of discussion on whether soy is good or bad for you, but soy has been known to raise estrogen levels, which can lead to a bunch of other things. So it's just, it messes with your hormones. It's just not good. So whatever you believe about soy, I usually just recommend people stay away from soy. Skim, coconut, almond, you know, you've got lots of other options out there. So. And I'm looking at my list, and I think that's about it. So I hope I was able to give you guys a little insight into what clean eating is. If you saw the graphic for today's post, she said, I thought clean eating was eating cupcakes while mopping the floor. So that's, you know, that's a lot of people's perspective on clean eating, or they think it's super expensive or it's really complicated. But honestly, it's just using better ingredients, preparing your own meals. Yes, it takes a little bit more time. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive. Yes, it's a little bit more involved, but shouldn't your health be worth that? Like I said, you've got to think of food as fuel. And if you're not fueling your body in the right way, you're not going to be performing in the right way. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be healthy. It's just a vicious cycle. So if there's one thing you can take away from this, it's start small, incorporate a few things. If you need to go back, go through the video and pause after each one and write them down, do it. But just start incorporating small little changes into your diet. And before you know it, you'll start losing weight. You'll start feeling better, you'll start having more energy, and you'll be like, what did I even do? Well, it was your diet. So thank you all for joining me. I see tons of comments on today's video. I tried to respond as I was going. I kind of got lost in my train of thought there for a while, so if I didn't respond to every one of them, I apologize. But thank you guys all for tuning in. I'm so happy that you were here with me tonight, and I can't wait to see you next week. If you have any suggestions about topics for next week, I've got some stuff written down, but I always love to hear about what you guys want to hear. So join me next week. Until then, I will see you soon.